What if Kion became king, and history took a different turn? The Pride Lands have always been ruled by the rightful heir, passed down from one great leader to the next. But what if the natural order had been disrupted? What if Simba's son, Kion, had become king instead of Kiara? Would the Pride Lands have thrived under his leadership, or would his story have taken a darker turn? Let's dive into an alternate future, where Kion, not Kiara, took his place on Pride Rock as the next ruler of the Pride Lands. In The Lion King the Sektu, Simba's pride, it was clear Kiara was the chosen heir. Groomed from birth to take her father's place, she followed the path of love and unity, bridging the gap between the Pride Landers and the outsiders. But Kion's story took a different turn in the Lion Guard, where he was given a unique destiny separate from the throne. But what if things had played out differently? What if, instead of leading the Lion Guard, Kion had been the one Simba prepared for the throne? Would the Pride Lands have remained a land of peace, or would his rule have changed everything? Unlike Kiara, who was guided by her heart and her love for Kovu, Kion was trained to be a warrior. Leading the Lion Guard meant he spent his life enforcing the circle of life, fighting off threats and protecting the kingdom. He was strong, tactical, and disciplined, qualities that could make a great ruler, but also ones that could make him rigid or even ruthless. Would Kion have ruled with the same openness as Kiara, or would he have been a stricter king, focused more on protection than unity? Would he have accepted Kovu, an outsider trained under Zira, as part of the royal family? Or would his duty-bound nature have made him more suspicious? And more importantly, how would Simba have shaped him? We know that Simba, scarred by his past, was already overprotective of Kiara, but with Kion, a son who was not only powerful, but also blessed with the roar of the elders, would Simba have tried to mold him into a version of himself, or even of Mufasa? Could this pressure have changed Kion, leading him down a path where he became not just a leader, but a ruler who saw himself as the ultimate protector of the Pride Lands? At any cost, with Kion as king, the Pride Lands would likely have been a place of security and structure. But at what cost? Imagine a Pride Lands where Kion's instincts as a warrior overshadowed his ability to trust. Would he have seen threats where there were none? Would he have pushed the outsiders away rather than embracing them? Unlike Kiara, who believed in uniting the two groups through love, Kion might have viewed them as a danger that could never truly change. Even the roar of the elders itself could have been a double-edged sword. As a cub, Kion struggled to control its power, knowing that with great strength comes great responsibility. But as a king, would he have relied on the roar to maintain order, unintentionally ruling through power rather than wisdom? Perhaps the Pridelanders would have respected him, but would they have feared him too? And what of Kovu? Kiara's love for Kovu was what ultimately led to the unification of the Prides. But if Kion had been king instead, would that unity have ever happened? Or would Kovu have been cast out, seen as too much of a risk? Would Zira's legacy have remained a permanent stain on the Pride Lands, with Kion unwilling to forgive? A kingdom built on strength alone can only last so long before it fractures. Would Kion have realized this in time? But to truly understand the kind of king Kion could have been, we need to look at the foundation he never stood on, and the sibling who did. But before we explore Kion's alternate reign further, it's worth asking, what makes a ruler truly ready? And does being the younger sibling make that path any less valid? Kiara's journey to the throne was rooted in compassion and trust, not only because of her bond with Kovu, but also because she was the eldest. She was groomed from the start to lead, and that shaped her maturity, her diplomacy, and her belief in unity. Her reign was expected. Kion's would have disrupted the natural order. Unlike Kion, Kiara was raised within the peaceful heart of the Pride Lands, surrounded by Rafiki's wisdom and Nala's quiet strength. Her lessons came not from battle, but from experience, learning to trust, to forgive, and to lead with empathy. While Kion was sent out to defend the circle of life, Kiara was taught to understand it. Her path to maturity was shaped by connection, curiosity, and the courage to love beyond boundaries. Some even whisper about a time before either of them, a time when Simba had another cub, Kopa, whose story was lost to time. A prince before the prince, a name almost erased, and yet not entirely forgotten. But even before Kiara and Kion, the royal bloodline may have carried another chapter, one that history tried to forget. Still think Kiara was the only one fit for the crown? Though unofficial, his existence raises the question: how many possible heirs has this throne seen, and what might each of them have brought to the Pride Lands? But Kion's path wouldn't have unfolded in isolation. Leadership is never a solitary path. Kion's strength didn't come from his roar alone, but from the ones who stood beside him. The Lion Guard, his closest allies and most loyal defenders, wouldn't simply disappear. What if Kion had brought them with him into his reign? Fuli, Beshte, Ono, and Bunga, all taking on roles within the royal court. Would they have become an elite force, protecting not just the borders, but the politics of the kingdom too? Their presence could have created a new dynamic in royal leadership, one rooted in teamwork and battle-tested trust. But it also might have blurred the lines between protector and ruler. Would the Lion Guard remain peacekeepers, or would they become enforcers of Kion's rule? Before imagining the future, let's explore the struggle within. The roar of the elders was a gift, one of immense power, tradition, and responsibility. But for Kion, it was also a burden. As a cub, he already feared its consequences. Now, as king, the pressure would only grow. Each time he summoned it, he'd feel the weight of generations before him. The echoes of Mufasa, the legacy of Simba, the risk of becoming like Scar. Would he lose himself in the power meant to protect others? Or would he learn to lead without relying on the roar at all? That inner conflict could have been the true test of his reign. And then there's Vitani. In one timeline, she forms her own Lion Guard, stepping into leadership in her own right. But if Kion were king, would she have remained a loyal ally, or challenged him as a rival? Perhaps she would have questioned his use of the roar, or the dominance of his rule. Or maybe they would have stood side by side, a fierce alliance forged from fire and respect. A king and a warrior queen, not bound by blood, but by purpose. Their dynamic could have redefined how power was shared in the Pride Lands. Picture this. Years into Kion's reign, the Pride Lands have become a model of structure and discipline. Patrols run like clockwork. Threats are neutralized before they reach the borders, and the roar of the elders echoes like a divine warning to anyone who dares challenge the throne. From the outside, it looks like paradise, a kingdom thriving under strength, but on the inside there's tension, whispers of fear. Lions bow because they must, not always because they trust. Kion stands atop Pride Rock, his mane windswept, his expression proud yet distant. Kiara stands beside him, not as heir, but as advisor. Not out of duty, but out of loyalty and a quiet understanding of what might have been. Rafiki watches in silence, and deep down, Kion wonders, has he protected the Pride Lands or imprisoned them in safety? And yet, even in this imagined future, there remains a truth worth exploring, because even a kingdom that doesn't fall can still quietly fracture. Two siblings, two paths, one shaped by peace, the other by pressure. And in the end, maybe it was never about who wore the crown, but about what kind of legacy they'd leave behind. Kion, for all his strength and discipline, was also compassionate and wise. Had he become king, he might have learned, as Simba did, that leadership is not just about protecting your kingdom, but about guiding it with trust and unity. Perhaps Rafiki or Nala would have been the voices of wisdom, reminding Kion that even a powerful king must listen to his people. Perhaps Kiara would have played a different role, not as the heir, but as the one who helped Kion understand the importance of balance, just as she did for Simba. However it might have unfolded, the balance between them, protector and unifier, tells us something deeper about leadership. Or maybe, after everything, Kion would have realized that the throne was not his destiny after all. Maybe his path, as the leader of the Lion Guard, was always meant to take him elsewhere, leaving Kiara to rule as the queen she was meant to be. Kion's journey in the Lion Guard was separate from the throne, but his story raises an interesting question. Is being the strongest the same as being the best ruler? Would a king who prioritizes security over unity ultimately protect the kingdom, or isolate it In the end, perhaps the circle of life played out exactly as it was meant to. Kiara, the queen who ruled with love, and Kion, the protector who ensured the Pride Lands remained safe. Two different paths, equally important. But what do you think? Would Kion have made a better king than Kiara? Or would his rule have led the Pride Lands down a dangerous path? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the Lion King, don't forget to like and subscribe for more hidden stories and character breakdowns.